Hey guys, it's GirlGotGame. Welcome back to London Detective Mysteria, where we are going to do our only ladies route, Miss Sara Marple. And I'm actually starting right in the beginning. Her introductory chapter is, I think, the second one? It's either the second or the first one. But Pendleton's running us through our paces of being a detective, and there's a couple of different choices that the walkthrough suggests we take for getting on Marple's route. So I thought, we haven't done these before, so I thought I'd bring you in for them first, and then we'll get into her chapter proper. So what would we do with the 10 pounds? Give it to the child, deliver it to the police, or say I'm conflicted? We should say I'm conflicted this time.
A natural response. You are both kind and responsible, so it's little wonder you cannot choose. Still, you may find yourself worse off if you can't make that decision in an emergency. A detective must be confident in their decisions, my lady.
Alright. Last question. And this time, instead of fleeing the country with the criminal or telling him to turn himself in, couldn't choose.
Of course. It might be a bit too difficult for you to answer as you are now. Perhaps it is because you've never had someone you truly love before. Or you haven't, to my knowledge, at least. Still, I hope to see you grow more and more as you encounter all manner of people.
Okay. So that's that. Those are the couple of things, and... Okay, yeah, we have to go through the whole snake incident and getting trapped with Holmes, so I'll bring you guys in when we start Marple's chapter properly. A most precarious afternoon tea. Okay, now we're on Marple's introductory chapter. So we will go through this to refamiliarize ourselves with Our Lady, since she probably won't have as much stuff like Seiji did. Kind of the similar situation there. And I love Miss Marple. I think she's a lovely girl, and I want to spend more time with her. There was, of course, a little scene with her in the first chapter of her dancing exquisitely, but I figured that wasn't too much with her. Let's begin properly. The morning was splendid as it was regular, yet certainly, despite its regularity, I remained conscious of the things that made it so splendid in the first place. The birds chirping their song, the sun beaming through my window, and most importantly, the exquisite breakfast I had been presented. A stack of fluffy flapjacks, a delectable omelette, a dressed salad. What bliss! Of course, I would be remiss if I neglected the regular sight of Pendleton, ever brimming with sophistication as he poured me a cup of tea.
My lady, I prepared Assam tea for your pleasure today.
Wonderful! Post-breakfast consisted of what I hoped were ladylike sips between reading the morning paper, which was always on the table once I was ready. This time the headline was enough to prompt surprise. Earl Alvin was murdered in his mansion, and the cause of death was via poison in a carafe? His lordship was in the midst of drinking water from a carafe when he began to desperately claw at his throat, collapsing only moments later. His death is believed to have been the result of arsenic poisoning.
Clever. No one can live without water, and thus no one would think to inspect it for poison before consuming it.
If I recall, the Earl was a gourmet, yes? He lived close to Covent Garden Market.
He was. So much so that he earned the name Iron Stomach for the many rare delicacies he sampled from around the globe. He prized cleanliness and displayed the utmost respect towards his food, to where he would wash his hands with an unusual degree of thoroughness before every meal.
How tragic that his one true passion should take his life.
Yes, the irony certainly speaks volumes.
Still, I was not so struck by the news that my own drinking habits were at pause as I continued sipping once my cup was refilled.
His tale is further evidence of how dangerous it is to carelessly consume everything one is served. I find myself thinking if it would be best for you to abstain from eating entirely from here on out.
A terrible sense crept from the pit of my stomach. Pendleton's smile did more to unnerve than ease.
For a start, I will forgo serving anything sweet during afternoon tea.
Oh no! How could you? Sweets are my only source of happiness. It's too cruel. And the food you serve wouldn't be dangerous.
True, but you're a particularly gluttonous young lady. Were I to try and kill you, it would be as simple as swatting a fly. Pray, is it worth the risk?
What do you mean? I'm nothing like a bug.
If I were to serve you a highly toxic meal of sautéed mushrooms and potatoes, you would gorge yourself without delay.
I dare say I would not. I know when something's edible. I do!
Well, have no fear. You may be naive of the ways of the world whilst having inherited a great fortune that an ordinary butler would murder to obtain, but I could never do such a thing.
Do you want me to keep you as my butler or not?
I insist that you should keep me. My wish is for you to live a long and healthy life for your parents. I think of it every minute, no, every second of my day.
You don't have to think of it quite that often, but if you must, just try and poison me. I can eat anything and still survive.
I suppose that's one way to live. Now come. It's almost time for school, and I have your carriage waiting for you. Please be certain not to eat any old thing you find on the street or accept food from strangers.
Enough! I'm not that greedy!
Later that day, Emily accepted food from a stranger.
Good job, girl. How can he insinuate such things? I'm not a glutton, and I'm far from sheltered. Why, I'm a very sensible woman. Sensible enough to know that a murder so close to here means I ought to inspect my meals before eating them from now on. My, did you read the paper this morning? It was an honest to goodness shock to read Earl Alvin was poisoned. You'd never think it would happen to a man called the Iron Stomach. Perhaps, but obtaining poison isn't as difficult as one might think. You can purchase arsenic if you visit a chemist, and if you're related to farmers in the countryside, they use a number of things to ward off pests. Oh, stop! I don't want to hear it. The entire academy was buzzing with talk of Earl Alvin's unexpected death.
Good morning, Emily. Did you read the paper?
You mean the news about Earl Alvin? Yes, I did.
It's horrible, isn't it? They say it's arsenic. Thought to have been caused by arsenic. Nothing more. Not one shred of detail on his symptoms. Not everyone is a hardened investigator. The specifics wouldn't be the most pleasant read for the average Londoner.
Oh? What happens if you ingest arsenic? My curiosity was piqued.
Symptoms of arsenic poisoning initially include stomach pains, diarrhea, and nausea. After a while, sensory changes can also occur, and in the worst-case scenario, death.
Thank you.
I have some photographs on my person, incidentally. This one has facial swelling, but that only occurs with acute intoxication. If it were chronic intoxication, the skin becomes more similar to this one.
Holmes spread upon the desk a variety of photographs for all to see. Ah!
This is absolutely horrific.
Fellow schoolmates gathered to browse Holmes's gallery of evidence only to sour upon first sight.
This one here represents paralytic shellfish poisoning. Were it poisoned from, say, a scallop, paralysis would begin in the lips and face before spreading to the limbs, eventually leading to motor impairment, difficulty breathing, and finally death.
Ah! It's a lovely collection, Holmes. I'm plenty satisfied now.
If it were a clam, you would experience chills, nausea, and dark spotting as a result of blood vessels bursting under the skin, all within 24 to 48 hours. In due time, you'll begin bleeding from both the gums and nasal cavities. In a severe case, this leads to delirium and... Holmes, you've made brilliant work of nauseating the entire room. A picture is worth 1,000 words. In light of the murder, I even thought to gift the classroom with my research materials on poison. And for what? You find it nauseating? do you think you can learn to distinguish so many symptoms this way? I agree that it's important, but some don't have the stomach for it. Surely you agree, Emily?
Me? Well, what does my note say? Okay. That's simple enough to answer. This one. I agree completely. The other schoolmates don't like it, so it's better to put it away for now. Most would react similarly when the content is so sudden and ghastly in nature.
See? She understands. Try to show some consideration for those around you.
Watson nodded with unbound enthusiasm now that I was his ally.
Then what? What happens when you come across a grisly crime scene? Coddling detectives won't help anyone. You and I won't have a problem since we're used to it, but it could be the first time one of our schoolmates has seen anything like it. Like Emily, for instance. Are you quite certain you're all right after seeing this, Emily?
Rather. If I'm to become a detective, then I'll have to get used to the imagery at some point.
I didn't know you were so serious about it. Just don't force yourself if it's too awful. The first time you see things like these, they may appear in your dreams from time to time.
Oh no! The horror! Yet I had seen enough details right before then to furnish weeks of nightmares, so I could only pray for pleasantries in my sleep. It was time for our classroom to lunch. Finally time to meet our girl properly. Whew, I'm famished. I planned to ask Watson and Holmes to accompany me to the courtyard, and so I surveyed the room for them, only to be distracted by a dense, unwell air amongst my schoolmates.
Are you going to eat?
Not now. I've lost my appetite. I certainly can't bring myself to think of food right now. Holmes's display from earlier had left an unfortunate impression that would not soon go away.
I weep for the next generation of detectives. All this fuss over a few photographs. How do they expect to face the real thing at a crime scene? Nonsense! Even I felt a bit queasy when you laid them out on the desk.
My mind wandered to those images again. How funny it was that I suddenly wasn't nearly as eager for lunch as I was moments before.
Best enjoy the sight like a good book, or I'll soon suggest looking into a new career. Oh.
Holmes groaned audibly enough for the classroom to hear. He may have had an effect on most, but one particular student remained content to lunch despite him. Ah, the first cup of tea is always the most refreshing, isn't it? My queensware set was the right choice. It suits me perfectly today. There she is. All pretty and sparkly. The girl, seemingly without a care for her surroundings, had placed her teacup on her delicately decorated desk. I forgot how creepy her music is, though. Between her tableware and tablecloth, she was equipped less for a classroom and more for a canteen. There laid steaming tea, various pristinely sliced sandwiches, scrummy-looking bread, and tarte tatin for dessert. More than enough for one lady. Tea poured from a carafe is meant to be cold, but the smell wafting through the room was as sweet as it was warm. It was a small wonder she was able to set it up so quickly. Goodness! I thought the entire room lost their appetite, but far from it with her. I don't know if we were properly introduced. Huh? Oh, she spotted me. Her hair, glossy as spider silk, was so refined that not a single hair was out of place, and its pale shade made to complement a delicately light, unblemished complexion. I saw her, her uncommonly large eyes made somehow larger by how she stared unblinkingly in my direction, and wondered briefly if I may have been schoolmates with a doll. Good timing. I dared myself to engage her. Hello. I just wanted to tell you that I'm rather impressed with your meal. Do you normally lunch this way? Yes, I do. How lovely. I ate in the courtyard yesterday, so I didn't notice. Your maid must be a wonderful cook to make everything look so appetizing. Not at all. I cook this myself. In fact, I make a habit of baking bread every morning using my grandmother's special recipe. Incredible! I'm so impressed. All by herself. I had to observe her meal again, now doubly delectable with this new information in mind. Oh, pardon me. I've not properly introduced myself. I'm our new schoolmate, Miss Emily Whiteley, yes? I've seen you in the morning paper. I hear you're a detective of Her Majesty's also. My name is Sara Marple. Where have I heard Marple before? Ah, yes, you dance expertly in our class on proper etiquette. Now I'm even more impressed. Do you really think so? I've never met someone so easily impressed with every little thing before. You're a funny girl. If you wouldn't mind, would you like to lunch together? That is an idea. I took a seat and opened my lunchbox next to Marple's. The more I see it, the more mouth-watering your cooking looks. And the tea smells just wonderful. Thank you. Come, now, use this to wipe your hands. Marple handed me a petite napkin. Thank you. Here you are, a tomato and cheese sandwich. She waited till I'd finished wiping my hands properly before handing me some of her food. You're too kind. Oh, it's scrumptious. And this too, an apricot tart. Dessert too? You spoil me. How does it taste? Like heaven.
Someone is unusually chipper this morning. What are you doing?
What does it look like? I'm feeding her.
You're feeding her.
She's had a sandwich and dessert already. She's a most fascinating girl. Oh? And why are those cheeks puffing out so much? Stop! That tickles! I couldn't decide with how she prodded my cheeks if she was being affectionate or cruel. Yet the two of us eating together appeared to soften the atmosphere of the room in a way that was very much needed. That smell is making me hungry. The same for me. Shall we eat then? One after another, the students began to take out their lunch boxes. I supposed Marple's relaxed temperament was infectious. A bit silly, aren't they? Can't imagine why they thought going hungry was a good idea. Marple, who had remained expressionless to a polished degree until then, presented the smallest hint of a smile. I rather liked that soft smile.
Well, you don't see that every day. Bit eerie when she does it, though. Pet therapy can do wonders. I'm surprised you know that. Wait a minute! Don't call Emily a pet! I never directly called her anything. At any rate, we should eat as well before the hour is over.
They thought they were speaking in whispers, but I could hear them clear as day. That Holmes and Watson, too. They think they can say whatever they please. Marple, small smile now gone, spared her attention for something out the window. It was subtle, but her manner now struck me as apprehensive. Oh dear, is something the matter, Marple? No, nothing. She sharply turned away from the window, but that same apprehension remained. But... Surprise. Wide eyes came about from my protest, but it did not last. It was seconds later that the manner she tried to hide returned. I promise, nothing is wrong. Now, would you be so kind as to help me tidy my desk? Certainly. I'll take the table where... Ah! A hard push from behind came right as I was carrying Marple's plates. Oh man, I miss this boy. Oof! Ow, 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 ow! I'd nearly lost my balance, but was able to right myself before dropping anything. Not so for the one who bumped into me. Sprawled on the floor was a handsome boy with a beautiful head of blonde hair. Though he wore a correct uniform, his spectacles had tilted off from the fall. You know, I'm sure I've seen this from him before. No, sorry. Sorry, Miss Whiteley. He was positively frantic, much more than anyone else in his position would have been. What am I supposed to do with you, anyway? Okay. Not make your heart go ba-bump.
I don't know how I tripped over the corner of the desk. Are you all right?
How shall I answer? Right as rain. I'm tougher than I look. See? I presented a cheerful smile before reaching out my hand.
Are you? Well, I supposed as much.
Huh?
Oh, I'm sorry.
You don't have to apologize. Are you hurt at all?
Lupin, did you fall and make a mess of things again? Those glasses are much too strong for you, aren't they?
Marple wasted no time with permissions, instead reaching straight for his spectacles.
Please! These are expensive, and I'm quite fond of them, so you can't take them.
I'm only doing this for your benefit. What if you were to fall down the stairs from the second floor and break that fragile neck of yours? Knowing you, you would surely die.
I'll be very careful not to do that.
You needn't worry at all, because I'll catch you if that happens.
Oh, you're so valiant. I've always admired women like you. Strong, dependable, and kind.
Emily, you are a daughter of House Whiteley, yes? You weren't raised chasing wolves round the countryside.
Your imagination is more wild than my childhood, but it's true I was raised in the countryside. I only returned to London recently.
Really? I only came to London when I enrolled in the academy. Did I ever say my name? It's John Lupin.
I don't believe so, so I'm glad you did so now. It's a pleasure, Lupin.
And the same to you, Miss Whiteley. Well then, till next time.
Lupin adjusted himself before returning to his seat.
Quite a shock to learn you grew up in the countryside as well.
As well? Is it the same for you?
When I was a little girl, yes. I used to bake bread, biscuits, and scones in a massive coal-fired oven together with my grandmother.
That sounds wonderful.
Emily, would you mind joining me after school? I have something I should like your help with.
Not at all, but may I ask where we're going?
That's a secret.
And so she presented a second, more mischievous smile. Marple, where are we?
This is the Academy dormitory for girls. A friend of mine lives here, Angelica. She doesn't attend any special courses as we do. She's taken a leave of absence in the past on account of illness, but it's become more frequent of late. This time she's been absent for 2 weeks straight.
Marple sighed as she looked up at the dorm.
I visited her last week, but I've heard she isn't getting any better, so I wanted to visit her again.
As any friend would, naturally. Now I know why Marple appeared so troubled before. I recalled what Marple was like in the classroom.
Then shall we go see her?
A surprise was upon us the moment we went to enter the building.
Ah!
Sorry.
The student tried to run away, but Marple grabbed him by the arm.
Do you always respond so flippantly when storming headfirst into a lady? Where are your manners?
I am sorry, miss, but I'm in a hurry.
He shook away her grip and was quickly off before she could say more. Who was that? He seemed to spring out from the dorm.
I'm not sure. Emily, are you all right?
Me? Oh, yes.
Good. If you were to get hurt, people might say it's my fault since I asked you to accompany me.
How should I read her being more concerned for that than me?
Well, shall we? Oh, wait! Marple!
I followed her into the dorm.
It's so lovely to see you again, Sara.
Sitting in bed and wearing a thick coat over a nightgown was a young girl. A sparkling smile awaited us the moment she saw her guest was Marple.
No need to get up, Angie.
Thank you. Oh, I can't believe my eyes.
Angelica gasped as she spotted me behind her friend.
Allow me to introduce to you a girl from my class. Her name is...
Miss Whiteley, isn't it? I saw you in the paper. It said you're Her Majesty's detective.
That's me, yes. Emily will do. You know who I am, then?
Yes, very well. I asked Sara about you, but she only mentioned you were schoolmates. I didn't think she was paying me any mind. Oh, thank you, Sara.
She just happened to come with me, that's all.
Now, don't be shy. I know you brought her for me. It's exciting to meet a girl of such celebrity.
Now, I wouldn't call myself celebrated. Celebrity? Even my ears were burning from embarrassment.
I'm ever so delighted to meet you, Emily. I'm Angelica.
Well, Angelica, the pleasure is all mine. Her physical condition made it so that smiling took great effort, but smile she did. For my part, the sight was a rewarding one.
How I envy the two of you. I've had to stay in bed for quite some time, you know, so I only get to see my roommate and my doctor. Ah, and Sara, of course.
That's it? I thought a student from the choir recently visited.
What? What makes you think that?
Her grin shifted to one now possessed by nerves, though she did attempt to mask the change.
When I visited you last, you never rose from your bed, but this time, well, you were sitting up and you're wearing a pretty nightgown. And there's dirt on the floor near the window that's roughly the size of a footprint. You're head of the choir, I believe, so I thought someone from there had visited you after school.
Well, I could only assume the dirt is from my flatmate's shoes. I was thirsty, so I rose to put the kettle on, but when she returned, I asked if she could make me a cup instead.
Doubtful. The way Angelica's pupils danced said there was a different story. Something is certainly going on with Angelica.
My apologies. I must have been confused.
That must be it. You've always been one to come up with silly theories. But I do miss the choir, very much. I hope I can attend school again soon.
The air around her became heavy with a lonely gloom as she mumbled.
Angie, are you feeling unwell?
A bit nauseous, yes. My stomach hurts as well, and I still don't have an appetite.
Why not see another doctor?
You too. Pardon me if this sounds too direct, but I refuse to change doctors.
But I've not heard reputable things about that man.
Oh, those rumors? All very exaggerated. My lord, am I ever blessed. My flatmate fusses as much as you. She'll bake my favorite snacks to boost my appetite, but I always end up eating so little.
It must feel awful to not be able to indulge in your favorite snacks. The very thought depressed me.
Snacks? You ought to start eating something more nutritious. What if I bring you vegetable soup on my next visit?
Well, if it's your home recipe, it might taste delicious. I suppose.
Next time, then. For today, you may indulge in my baked meringues.
Marple, against her scoldings for better food, was swift in producing a carefully wrapped packet of her own sweets.
Can't wait. Oh, I wish my appetite were up for it now. But I shall eat some later. I promise.
A vigorous knocking on the door interrupted us. It opened immediately after.
Angie, I've made you some tea. You have guests?
The girl who entered the room twinkled with a question in her eyes.
You have excellent timing, Alyssa. My friends have come to see me. That's right, you weren't here during Sara's last visit.
Angie, is this your flatmate?
The one and only. I'd like you to say hello to Alyssa. She's in the choir with me.
It's nice to meet you. Sara Marple. This girl here is in my class, Emily Whiteley. It's a pleasure to meet you. I've heard plenty about you from both Angie and the paper, Emily.
Oh, how lovely. Alyssa, Sara's brought some baked goods. You can have some if you'd like.
And I do! I'll go make some more tea.
In no time at all, the four of us were intimately gathered with cups in hand.
By the by, Alyssa is learning to make scones and jam. Her clotted cream is the best I've ever had. Its almond flavor complements the scones perfectly, and...
You won't get anywhere flattering me so much, Angie. Take care not to spoil her, even if she is sick. I would never. I've been sure to prepare healthy meals like vegetable soup and porridge and such. She despises them, but I never stop nagging her till she's eaten all her carrots and celery. Oatmeal, too.
Yuck! I never forget to take my medicine either.
Was it your doctor who advised you watch what you eat?
Yes. Dr. Fao comes to me from his clinic near the academy since the walks have been making me faint. I've been seeing him since I was small.
Even when it's so close. How terrible! I do hope this will pass soon.
I would love that. I want to practice singing for the Christmas concert, and since I'm head of the choir, I'd like to see how the other students are faring.
If only you were more dedicated with anything else as much as you are with the choir.
Come on. That's not a nice thing to say about a sick person now, is it?
She might have a point. Regardless, I wish you well enough to be able to attend choir practice soon.
Marple grew much lighter, much friendlier as she conversed with these girls. In truth, visiting a girls' dormitory was a first for me, as was visiting a friend's bedroom. I became distracted by nearly everything around me, head turning this way and that to inspect what precisely made this place feel like Angelica and Alyssa's. Excuse me, Angelica. Would it be a bother if I were to browse through your room?
By all means, browse. Alyssa, what do you think?
I don't mind.
Thank you. I approached the 2 trophies that I noticed on the shelf as soon as I stepped in the room. Each one was labeled Silver Prize Spring Bird Award. May I ask what these trophies are for?
Alyssa and I won those after we placed second in a contest.
It was during our first year here, if I recall.
Must have been quite the year. I'd like to hear more about it when you're better. I wandered yet again before catching something else on the shelf. There was a tiny brown bottle with a label I'd never seen before. Hange Shashinto and Saiko Keshito? What's this?
Find something interesting?
Perhaps I'd been staring too intently. I hadn't a clue Marple was watching me till she spoke. I was, wondering what this is. I plucked the bottle from the shelf and showed it to her.
That's my medicine. My doctor recently prescribed it to me. It's a Chinese herbal medicine, I suppose. I've been told it was specially blended for me.
So that's what it is. I wonder how it compares to Western medicine. I went to read the label. Fao Clinic. Same as her doctor's name she mentioned earlier.
It smells awfully funny, but it isn't so bad once...
Angelica?
Very suddenly, Angelica was attacked by a fit that refused to stop. Breaths between grew shorter and shorter, rousing panic for her company. Angelica!
Alyssa, call the doctor! Right away!
Our fears worsened when Angelica slumped over.